Good afternoon, Mizzou fans, internet friends, whatever you would like to be called on this fine Wednesday afternoon. Gabe DeArmond here with Sean Williams on the other side of the screen. This is the first day that I can remember that we do not expect a Missouri commitment in either football or basketball. So we thought it would be a good day to get together and talk about what's going on, answer your guys' questions, set the scene in recruiting, all that. Here's what I like, Sean, when we start a show and somebody has already paid us money to do a show we hadn't even done yet. Like, we could legitimately just say, Jared, thanks for the hat tip, man. We're out. So, Sean, if you want to do that, man, just click end and we are finished.
Honestly think, Gabe, we can earn more money if you just take your shirt off.
That's honestly not where I saw this show going. So we're going to remain fully clothed and we're going to talk about Mizzou recruiting for the next however long. If you've got questions, comments, whatever, throw them in the queue. We will get to them. Thanks to everybody who's joining us live. If you are watching on the podcast or if you're watching on YouTube later, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you listen on the podcast that we'll put up later on, just leave us nice reviews, say incredibly positive things about Sean and myself, because I don't know if it helps anything, but we like it. So thanks for saying nice things. Sean, it's been a busy week. Do we focus on the fact that Missouri has added, 7 players in 5 days? Or do we focus on the fact that, hey, it's a good thing Missouri added 7 players in 5 days because they kind of needed to?
Yeah, I think the truth can be told in both statements, actually. So, yeah, I mean, we kind of thought about doing one of these videos back about a week ago, and I'm glad I kind of said, let's wait a little bit. Let's wait till after the last official visit weekend, and we'll see what happens. And yeah, they've done a really good job. The Gold Rush weekend has really helped them out on the recruiting trail. Going into that weekend, they had 3 commitments, and now they have 10. Their class is still 60th, so there's still some work to be done there. But obviously, they're still in on some high-profile guys like Ryan Wingo, Williams Nawarne, and but they got one of their high-profile guys yesterday in James Madison, Rivals 250 wide receiver, obviously a Kansas City native, and that was a big get for Missouri, and obviously kind of completed the St. Thomas Aquinas trifecta for the Tigers, getting his 2 teammates as well. And then you got Cameron Keys too, who committed yesterday. So you got, out of the 10 kids in the class right now, you got 4 of them from Florida. And that's a really good thing for Missouri to kind of establish their foothold there. And maybe they can get some more guys from a talent-rich state like Florida to come into the recruiting class. That's a state they've kind of had hits and misses on. They haven't really had a lot of big success there. So to have 4 guys in a recruiting class from Florida is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, we'll kind of run through all the individual news over the last week. We'll go kid by kid, but just like broad view, they've gotten 7 commitments in the last week. Which one of them jumps out to you? Which one do you look at and say that one, that's a big deal?
Yeah, I would think James Madison. I mean, he would be the most obvious one. Just because you're kind of going up against Florida State with him, and, you think, well, he's in Florida now. He's at Florida State. Maybe he stays in the state of Florida, even though he's from Kansas City. But getting him, you kind of saw the writing on the wall a little bit whenever, he's got, whenever his teammates, Bodford commits and then Rodriguez commits right afterwards. So, he's on social media kind of pumping that up. So you kind of saw the writing on the wall to get him. But still, I mean, that's kind of a good – to get him is just super key, just because he's been such a big focus for Missouri, for a long time now. Obviously being, from Kansas City and being able to kind of land him and make him come back home and play. So does that help out with Ryan Wingo down the road? And you got like a nice little group of wide receivers, kind of like from the in-state area, or that have ties to the state. To kind of fill out your roster. That's a pretty big deal. So we'll see what happens down the road there.
So Madison's obviously the highest rated kid, but I'm going the other direction. The one that jumped out to me is Nick Rodriguez, linebacker, 4-star kid, highly rated, same school. But when you looked at his recruiting profile, official visit to Louisville, official visit to West Virginia, official visit to Ohio State, that as far as I know did happen on June 2nd. Now, look.
Yeah.
Could he have committed to Ohio State if he wanted to? I have absolutely no idea. Doesn't matter if you're Missouri. He took it visit there. You sell, hey, we just beat Ohio State on the recruiting trail. But point is, this is a kid a lot of people wanted, at a position where I think Missouri hasn't always necessarily gotten super highly rated guys. And that's receivers. I mean, receiver to me is the most kind of replaceable position on a college football team. I mean, they got a bunch of dudes. Guys are going to catch passes, right? And it's also very reliant on, you have to have the time to block. You have to have the quarterback that can get it there. So I just look at linebacker maybe being a little bit more important than getting a receiver, saying nothing about Madison specifically. I'm sure he's a good player, all that. But Rodriguez was the one that jumped out to me. So let's kind of just go kid by kid. And we're not looking to spend 5 minutes on all these, but just for anybody that for some reason, has not been watching our every move for the last 7 days, which you should have been, because I'm just going to tell you, we set 10 days ago, I set the over-under on 11 days at football and basketball commitments at 8.5. We're currently at 8 with another 3 decisions coming in the next couple days. We are also, to my knowledge, the only media outlet that actually talked to all 8 of these kids. Thanks to John Garcia down in Florida, hooking us up with interviews with some of those guys. But we talked to every one of these kids before the commitment was public, told you what to expect. So, look, I would say not to toot our own horn, but absolutely, that's what it's for. Subscribe.
I mean, it's our show. I mean, we can toot our own horn whenever we want to, man.
If we want to sit here for 30 minutes and tell you guys that we think we're awesome, then we're going to do that.
Let's pat each other on the back on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
There you go. I don't know how to do that virtually, but I would do it. So let's run through these kids. First one on board officially was Jude James, athlete from St. Charles. He was a kid that Missouri just offered not too long before he visited. So we kind of saw that as soon as he scheduled that visit, we saw the writing on the wall. But the interesting part about him is he said, hey, they haven't decided where I'm going to play. I could be a tight end. I could be that star hybrid safety linebacker. So versatile kid. And I think that's kind of a theme we've seen, especially with the defensive back type kids in the last 2 classes, is a lot of these kids are coming in and they're going, even Jordan Harris last year, 6'7", 230, they're like, could be tight end, could be a defensive end. We just think he's a football player.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you kind of mentioned secondary guys. It's almost like most of those guys they're not saying cornerback or safety. They're just saying, hey, we can see you playing both, we'll just kind of figure it out when you get there. But yeah, James, I mean, obviously he had you can kind of look at his film. I mean, he could play on both sides of the ball, honestly. He's just that athletic. I mean, I think he'll probably end up on the defensive side, but I don't know. I mean, just because his stats he had 120 tackles, it's playing safety. So
I mean, look, if he was going to be on campus tomorrow, he'd probably play tight end because Missouri needs somebody who can. But by the time he gets here, who knows?
It's true. They do need tight ends, and he's got the frame to grow into a tight end. To add good weight and become a pretty good tight end. And that. Here's the thing. I watched him play last year, when I went and watched Brett Northfleet play, in their game. And he looked good. I knew he at the time he already had some MAC offers. So I kind of kept an eye on him, but he had a good frame and he was one of the best players on the field that night. They used him in a lot of different ways. He played defense, played offense. They had him do some reverse runs and stuff like that. I mean, he was just kind of everywhere on the field. So, it was a good get. For him, it's like he got a chance to kind of show Missouri's coaches what he could do in person twice, because I think he went to one of their elite camps early in June, and then his team returned for a 7-on-7 tournament at Missouri later that month, and then they offered him a few days later. So Missouri was his only Power 5 offer, but he had a lot of G5 offers from MAC schools, Conference USA, stuff like that. So really good kid. So Missouri got in there, and obviously once you kind of offer him your only Power 5 offer, and you kind of turn right around and take that official visit, you kind of know the writing's kind of on the wall for that. But it's a really good pickup for them.
Next one on the board was that same day, 6'1", 185-pound 3-star safety Jackson Hancock. This one to me is hey, you either trust your coaches or you don't. Right. I mean, Hancock's next best offer was probably Troy, but this wasn't we need somebody to fill the class on December 18th offer. Missouri offered this kid in March, had him for an unofficial visit in March. So this is clearly, the Missouri coaches think they see something that the rivals evaluators don't. And look, the Missouri coaches are the Missouri coaches because theoretically they should know more than the rival. I respect the people who do our rankings, Sean included, but they should know more. So, you can look at this and say, well, I got a few questions, but again, they offered him in March. They obviously think the kid can play.
Yeah, I mean, they were on him, but he came in. I can't remember if he came in for the spring game or not off the top of my head, but I do know he came in March. I talked to him after he visited. I think he'd been talking to Blake Baker for, maybe a month or two before then, before he came in and got the offer. So, yeah, they've loved him for a long time, getting him back on campus. So, yeah, you're right. This is going to be kind of one of those situations where, hey, we'll see how good the coaches are at evaluating talent because obviously, rivals didn't really evaluate him, I guess very well, because, Missouri's his only Power 5 offer. So we're going to kind of, this is where we'll figure out, how good are the coaches at evaluating talent? We'll figure that out in a few years with him.
No question. Next one was Cam Dooley, 6'4", 195-pound. We've got him as an athlete. I think he's going to play defense, whether that is, 6'4" is tall for a safety. Could develop into a linebacker, I think. Somebody brought up defensive end. I thought, I don't know that you come in at 195 pounds and turn into an SEC defensive end necessarily, but picked Missouri over Vandy and Kentucky, which was a little bit of a theme this week. And look, those are especially Kentucky, those are the recruiting battles you have to win if you're Eli Drinkwitz. You're not going to go get a ton of kids that have Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State offers. And you get some now and again. Mm-hmm. But the teams that you're trying to catch in this league are Kentucky, South Carolina. You're trying to stay ahead of Arkansas, Vanderbilt. So those are recruiting battles you need to win. Missouri won this one.
Yeah. And I think obviously, Missouri offered him in the spring, but, I remember I've talked to him a little bit just because of, for Vanderbilt purposes. And, he didn't visit Missouri before, in Vanderbilt, Kentucky, he visited those schools in the spring. So he's a little bit more familiar with those schools. And then, after he took his Vanderbilt official, before that, he didn't tell me anything about taking a visit to Missouri. And then all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I'm going to take an official to Missouri. So really good win for Missouri to kind of get him in a little bit late when I guess he wasn't kind of quite on the radar in terms of taking an official visit early in June, but to get him on campus, make a big impression. And then they ended up getting a commitment from him. So yeah, those are recruiting battles you want to win. You want to beat other SEC teams for a kid like that.
I want to invite you guys again, questions, comments, put them in the queue. We will get to them. Just kind of want to run through and give everybody the thumbnail sketch on these commitments. We're about halfway done with it. Justin Bodford, defensive tackle from Fort Lauderdale, was the first of those 3 Florida kids. I was asked this morning, has Missouri ever had 3 kids from the same team in the same class? Not in the Rivals era that I could find, at least not as scholarship guys. So this is kind of a first. Bodford was the first one. He was the one where there wasn't a lot of suspense. Did have other Power 5 offers, did take a visit to Pitt in the spring, but kind of seemed pretty obvious once he came up here on the official visit. He just kind of seemed, we kind of knew that one was going to happen.
Yeah, and basically, what we do, we like to stalk Instagram accounts and stuff like that. So, when it comes to stalking Instagram accounts from the official visitors over the Gold Rush weekend, Bodford's was definitely the most active in terms of he was really enjoying his visits and taking pictures and videos and everything like that. So you could kind of tell that one was coming. Excuse me.
Sean's excited about this one. Really choked up.
I've been on a streak of choking on my spit and water of late. Okay. So I don't know what's wrong with me, but yeah, he had a good offer list in terms of Power 5. No, he didn't, like I said, kind of took a visit to Pitt. I think West Virginia is another spring visit he took. Didn't take any other officials, but except to Missouri, but still, obviously this is going to be one of those where Missouri coaches liked him and they really wanted him in the class and thought he was good enough to be in there. And we'll see what happens. We'll see how he develops in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, talked about Nick Rodriguez a little bit, so we won't do too deep on that. But I will say with Rodriguez, I was going to throw that in there whenever you got done earlier. But, the thing about Rodriguez is he was kind of a late offer from Missouri. They didn't offer him June 11th. So that was kind of a big deal, too. You talked about, he had other officials that he took, including Ohio State and Louisville.
But yeah, I mean, just to kind of throw an offer out there and June 11th, get him on campus for the last weekend there, and then get a commitment from him was a pretty big deal for Missouri.
Yeah, and clearly an instance where Rivals is the superior recruiting service, because we have him a good 40 or 50 spots higher than anybody else does. Now, we'll get to another instance where that's not the case. Look, rankings they're all subjective, right? Like, maybe we're right on Nick Rodriguez. Maybe other people are right on Nick Rodriguez. Who knows? But like, here's what I've rediscovered this week. The best recruiting service is the one that likes the kid you got that day the most, right? Because Nick Rodriguez is a 4-star because we have him as a 4-star. Other people might not. There's other kids that we don't have as a 4-star, but they're 4-star somewhere else. So they're just all 4-stars, man.
Yeah.
You end up signing 24 4-stars because somewhere there's a 4-star.
They're all 4-stars on social media. So
there you go. even though nobody can see it anymore. Sean talked about James Madison some. Look, this is, I think it's a big deal, like, especially in a year where Missouri is obviously struggling in state. There's a couple kids, 3 kids still out there that who knows the way it could go. But right now, I mean, let's just be honest about things. They've struggled in the state, but they've gotten a kid who used to live in the state, then moved away, and now is coming back. And some comments from him that was a big selling point for Missouri, was the chance to come back here and play football in front of James Madison's family. And I mean, normally I bitch about kids who commit on July 4th. I mean, James Madison had to commit on July 4th. There was no way he could commit on any other day.
It was definitely the perfect storm. And really, honestly, I like the way he's played up to the July 4th announcement. Obviously, he kind of calls himself Prez, for obvious reasons. And, I loved his video, too. And, I mean, he just put out a tweet today where it's like he had, like, I think he put, like, the cabinet or something like that. And he had, like, a picture of him and then Rodriguez and Bodford behind him in suits and stuff. So I really liked the kid's social media presence and, just kind of embracing the whole presidential role and kind of marketing himself based off that. So I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to call yourself Prez, like, you got to go out and back it up on the field, right? But hey, wide receivers are not necessarily known for their being understated type of players. So good for him. Finished up yesterday. And like I said, we're going to get to the opposite of Nick Rodriguez, which is Cameron Keys, who's ranked as a 4-star by some. We have him as a 3-star, but defensive back. This kid's straight cornerback, 6 foot, 160. So that's where he's going to play. But another one that had a Vandy visit, had a Kentucky visit, and ended up choosing Missouri at a place where I think Missouri has a lot of guys. So Cameron Keys is a guy you look at and say, hey, you've got a year or two to work this kid into the rotation. Like, it's not a position where they're going to necessarily need somebody to show up and play day one in 2024.
Yeah, I agree. And you look at Keys, and it seems like, you mentioned all 3 of those schools, Kentucky, Vandy, Missouri. He really liked all 3 of those schools. He visited all 3 of them in the spring. He came back and did officials during the summer, and Missouri won out. So that, like I said, that's a battle Missouri needs to win on most occasions, and they did on this one. So you kind of throw that one in there with Cam Dooley as well, who kind of had the same 3 schools he was choosing from among his finalists. So.
And kudos to Cameron Keys for the most 2023 recruiting announcement ever, which is a video live stream where he picks up a Missouri hat, puts it down, picks up a Vandy hat, puts it down, and then the string just cuts out. So, we had talked to him. We knew he was committing to Missouri, but we couldn't run our story until we had actual proof that it happened. And once that live stream cut out, we just had to wait a couple minutes to get proof that it happened. But it did. 7 in 5 days, none expected today. Let's get quickly, before we get to the question, kind of what else is on the horizon. Cole McConaughey, defensive end, another kid, I believe, from Alabama. He's from Spanish Fort, Alabama.
Yep.
He's going to choose between Missouri and Louisville. I checked with somebody a couple days ago and was told, look, he's not telling anybody till the day he decides. So we don't know where he's going to go. He has been pretty active on Twitter and on social media with Missouri, but also has been with Louisville. So I don't have a great feel for the way this one's going to go.
Yeah. I think, we could probably sit there and say it goes either way. Maybe Missouri wins out because they got the last visit, but we really don't know. It's going to be a situation where obviously it seems like he's going to stay pretty tight-lipped until he announces his commitment. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, a couple of running backs have visited last weekend, and the next few days have announcements scheduled. Johan Cardenas is announcing on Friday it's going to be either Missouri or Vanderbilt. I talked to him after his official. He said, I didn't think anything could match Vandy, but Missouri did a really good job. There's been some talk on our message board. Somebody says they know somebody that thinks it's kind of leaning toward Vandy. I don't know. He hasn't responded to you. He hasn't responded to me. And Sean does some stuff covering Vandy recruiting too. So like you kind of can say, hey, I cover both these teams. Like, just let me know what's going on. But we don't know for sure. Doesn't seem overly optimistic at this point, but that's just because there really hasn't been any information.
Right.
And with Darian Dupree, he's a 4-star kid. Sounds like Wisconsin. I mean, he came into that Missouri visit, and most people kind of thought Wisconsin. Kind of seems that's the way coming out of it. And let's be honest, man. Running back, it's kind of hard to argue if the kid ends up going to Wisconsin, isn't it?
Even though it's a different regime there now, and Fickle seems like he wants to throw the ball a little bit more, but I'm sure the running game is going to be accentualized. But yeah, everything I'm kind of hearing on Dupree currently is still leaning towards Wisconsin. So
yeah, so you've got those three. Brian Huff, a 4-star linebacker, is set to announce July 12th, which is a week from today. It's Missouri, UCF, Arkansas, and somebody else I'm forgetting. But UNLV maybe?
UNLV, yeah.
I mean,
Odom coming in for the steal.
Our opinion is Missouri, it's not a guarantee, but we feel like Missouri's in pretty good shape here, right?
Yeah, I'm going to say Missouri or Arkansas there. But I think Missouri's in pretty good shape. But we'll see if Arkansas tries to make a late little push there, So
yeah. So outside of that, there's only like 4 or 5 kids that have officially visited Missouri that aren't committed anywhere. Sean, do you know anything about Justin Logan and his recruitment?
I know Justin Logan was supposed to go to NC State the last weekend of June. That got canceled. So I don't know where he stands with Missouri, and if he's like a take for them currently or not. But Missouri, it appears that Missouri is the only official visit he's taken in June. So not really sure what the process is going to be with him going forward, if he's going to take any visits in the fall or not. But I know his NC State visit got canceled. So.
Okay, Dre Kirkpatrick Jr., a cornerback out of Alabama. Yes, that is Dre Kirkpatrick, just the second one, but it's the one you're thinking of that played SEC football. As far as I know, too, his only June official visit was Missouri. We've heard Missouri feels good about it, but nothing official, no announcement date set that we know of.
Yeah, I've reached out to him. He has not gotten back to me since his I obviously got a hold of him after his official visit, kind of reached out to him a couple of days ago, and he hadn't got back to me yet. So Missouri's only official right now. Whether, he's waiting around to see if any, other SEC teams come into play. I mean, during the fall, I don't know. But, it could be a possible case where he ends up in Missouri's class. I mean, I think Missouri's the best shot right now. We'll see if anybody else gets involved there.
Elias Williams, a defensive end who visited Kansas, UCF, Indiana, told me after his visit here that he wanted to camp at Florida State on June 29th. So that, to me, sounds like a kid who wants a Florida State offer. And if he manages to get it, he's going to go to Florida State. The other thing, he just kind of strikes me as a kid who UCF is probably a bigger threat there than I think people would think just based on program name alone. I think there's a decent chance he stays in Florida. Yeah,
UCF, if they really want him and push for him, I think they definitely will be a threat. They've done a really good job on the recruiting trail of late. I think they've got 4 4-star kids in their class right now. So, I mean, they've been doing a really good job. Obviously, kind of throwing we're in the part of the Big 12 right now, so they're technically now a Power 5 school. So, watch out, Florida State, and Miami.
Yeah, that's right. Last 2 kids. Look, we held the big fish for last, and then we'll get to your questions after this. Ryan Wingo, Williams Nwaneri both visited June 23rd, that big weekend where Missouri had 15 or 16 kids in town. I talked to Ryan 4 or 5 days after his visit. He basically said, yeah, I don't see myself deciding in the summer. We also visited Texas, Georgia, Michigan. Texas kind of seems to be the flavor of the month. I know there has been a prediction out there, which, by the way, Ryan, for whatever that's worth, reposted to his Instagram story that somebody was predicting he would go to Texas. I don't know. Missouri's in it. NIL's a factor. But it kind of just reading vibes seems to be, if there is a team to beat right now, it kind of seems like Texas is that team. But again, he said he's not deciding for a while, so things can change.
Yeah, if he's not deciding for a while, then that gives other teams opportunities to maybe sway his decision and get him on campus for an official visit during the fall, because he's only taken 4. So obviously there's not a rule for that now. But obviously, kids aren't out there taking 10 official visits because that's crazy. But obviously he can take another 1 or 2 if he wants to. And, I think I've heard, a Tennessee might get involved, a little bit more. So you never know what's going to happen. The further it goes out, it gives more opportunities for more teams to kind of get involved and get him on campus and sway his decisions. So,
well, and look what Missouri can push here. You're talking about crazy, and look, I could do a whole show on how wild this is, but literally there's a state law that says if he signs with Missouri, he can start getting NIL money that day. So like December 20th or whatever it is. Anywhere else he goes, even if he's an early enrollee, he's going to have to wait at least 3 more weeks or whatever. If he doesn't go till June, Missouri's got a 6-month start where they can pay him. And this is not a recruiting violation. This is college football. It's perfect. It is legitimately a state law. So whatever your feelings are about that, I promise that is being pushed by Missouri staff. And as it is with Nwaneri, the 5-star defensive end, we've got him the number 3 player in the country. We haven't gotten in touch with him since his official. I tend to think it's not a great sign that the official visit schedule was altered so that he could spend his own money to fly to Atlanta and take an unofficial visit to Georgia. Now, people say, well, he had a family thing going on there. Yeah, he might have, but he visited Georgia.
But he visited Georgia. Yeah, that's the thing. You're you got a family thing, but I'm going to swing by campus and check out Georgia again.
And the official visit to Missouri was he made it. He was here for 48 hours, but the schedule was changed and he visited Georgia. I still think Oklahoma is a major, major factor there from what I've heard. Tennessee is a possible factor there. So if we're going either, neither, or both with Wingo and Nwaneri, I might put neither in the lead, but if I'm going either, I certainly think the chances are better with Wingo than they are with Williams-Nwaneri.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Just because, I don't tend to overreact with future casts or crystal balls or anything like that. But obviously, we're talking about Texas here being kind of a contender for Wingo, and that's kind of been thrown out there. So yeah, I'd probably go with. Hate to be the bearer of bad news and agree with you, but I'd probably go with neither right now. But the further Wingo waits, kind of be interested to see how that goes. And obviously with Nwaneri, he's supposed to take an official visit to Oregon in September. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. It may not. It may. Who knows?
And look, a summer commitment has never been more meaningless, honestly, in the age, first of all, of NIL. Again, Missouri is going to push this to these kids. We can pay you faster than anybody else can pay you. And secondly, like Sean said, unlimited basically 10 official visits reset, or 5 reset on September 1st. So I had somebody tell me they were talking to a coach the other day that said, yeah, it's great to get these kids. Come September 1st, they can go take 5 more visits if they want to. It's going to be every bit as hard to hang on to them. Look, a 3-star kid who didn't have a lot of offers probably isn't taking 5 official visits. But Williams-Nwaneri is the number 3 kid in the country. If he just wants to go get wined and dined 5 more times, nobody is going to tell him he can't. So, I'm not sure how much it really matters until December.
And you're talking about Nwaneri and Wingo. They're both 5-star kids. They can wait as long as they want to make a decision, and then the longer they wait, the more teams can come in and say, hey, come on an official visit, because, you can take as many as you want right now. So that'll be interesting to see how it kind of works out with the 5-star kids that are still uncommitted. And, will they take more than, the usual 5 official visits since they can now? And who else kind of gets involved with them throughout the rest of the summer and the fall? So we'll see what happens.
Well, and again, if you're not a 5-star kid like that. Like if one of these kids that committed to Missouri in the last 7 days says, hey, I'm going to take 4 more visits, like there's a pretty decent chance Missouri coaches go, well, cool. You're not committed to us. We're going to recruit over you if we can. You know, I mean, there is a food chain here, and the higher up you are on the food chain, the more you're allowed to take other visits.
The more you can get away with in terms of making people wait and taking other visits. So yeah,
Jordan rules without question. So all right, we spent the first half of the show kind of giving you some of our thoughts, catching you up on everything. I'm going to spend the second half trying to get to all your questions. I know there have been a bunch. If you've got them, you know, feel free to post them in the queue. We're just going to start running through them. Bradley says, do you think Missouri used a different recruiting strategy this year? I don't. I mean, other than the fact that, yes, NIL, everybody's using a different recruiting strategy as far as NIL, transfer portal being a thing. But, like, no, I don't really think they used a different strategy. I think they got off to a slower start. And I think it's pretty easy to explain why, Sean. They're 3 years in and they're 17 and 19. Like the first 3 years, they're selling hope, development, all that. Now these kids want to start seeing, hey, you're better than a 6-6 football team. And that is not saying that 9-3 would necessarily change a whole bunch of kids' minds, all that. I'm not sure it would. But point being, the product on the field has to start translating if Missouri is going to keep recruiting at the level they did on paper for the first 2 or 3 years under Drake.
Yeah, I think recruiting strategies, like I said, it's going to be pretty much the same across the board. I don't think anything's different with Missouri. I think the thing that will be, I think the thing that would be different this year as opposed to previous years, if they won 8 games last year, you know, and you see progress and you win a bowl game. Winning cures a lot of things. We can talk about NIL all we want to, but kids want to see a good product on the field too, and know that they're going to come into a good situation and they're going to win some games and have some fun. So, that hasn't translated yet in Missouri's tenure or Drinkwitz's tenure. So yeah, they need to start being above 500 and need to start winning some bowl games and get some momentum on that regard.
Well, and I've always said there's only 2 recruiting strategies. Strategy 1 is we're on top. You can help us stay there. Strategy 2 is we're not on top. You can help us get there. Now, strategy 3 is, hey, we can pay you more than they can pay you, right? Like we can take pictures of you with gold bars on your official visit, So that's the new strategy, but everybody's using that.
Where would you rank the gold bar photo shoot, Gabe, on your list of photo shoots?
It's solid. I'm waiting for the team that just dumps bags of cash out and has kids lay in it. It's legal now.
Just have strippers on poles and cash, just hanging out.
Hey, it worked for KU. They ain't on probation. Morgan wants to know, do you think this many June, July commitments lead the NCAA to move up the early signing day? I don't know, man. I'm in favor of, and I know that there's a report out there that like they might get rid of the national letter of intent, which I've always said no kid should ever sign a national letter of intent. That doesn't help the kid at all. It only helps the school. Mm-hmm. I think maybe they get rid of the signing day. Maybe it's just, hey, when you want to sign, now you can't sign as a sophomore in high school. You've got to be somewhere before your junior year. But starting June 1st, or before your senior year, starting June 1st before your senior year, the day you commit, you want to sign, go ahead and sign. You're locked in. You're done. Nobody else can talk to you. Right. I don't know if they'll do that, but like they just change things every 2 years. And then when they make a change, they go, oh man, here's a whole bunch of problems with this that we didn't see coming. So let's make another change to that. They don't know. Nobody knows what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, it's tough to come up with a routine or whatever. And, because you're going to have problems with anything you kind of do. I do like that. I do like the idea of if the kids that want to commit and they're 100% locked in, go ahead and sign your national letter of intent, and nobody can talk to you after that. But I mean, I don't know. There's not really a great, I guess, one way to really kind of,
fix it. Right?
Fix it. Yeah. I mean, there's no quick fix or anything like that. I mean, it's just kind of like, hey, you just got to kind of play with certain ideas and then you'll figure out if they work or not, and then you'll change them, so.
I'd be fine with the early signing day going away and just going back to when it was the first Wednesday in February. Just do it then. I mean, this whole December thing is stupid. The one thing it can't be is stay in December, because by the time anybody involved with college football gets to the end of December, and that includes like us, we're done, man. We're cashed out. We got no energy left. Imagine the coaches. They're trying to prepare for bowl games. figure out who's going to the NFL, sign all the kids they've got committed, finish recruiting the high school kids. Oh, by the way, the damn transfer portal just opened.
Right.
Who's leaving?
I think
so they got to change the December thing.
Yeah, December is definitely not the best time to have any kind of signing day or anything like that because you're dealing with so much, especially like you said, the teams that are going to bowl games and then transfer portal. You just have to, I mean, that's another huge, a huge thing to deal with. And that, unless the portal thing gets, the entering the portal kind of changes on the dates. I mean, that's just going to be a big thing to have to deal with, people coming in and out. So.
And I know nobody cares about this, but these are human beings. Sean, I was texting people on December 23rd last year going, I bought 0 Christmas presents. I've got to, and think about Eli Drinkowitz trying to have family with this. Now he makes $6 million a year. Maybe he just pays somebody to do his shopping. I don't know. But
I mean, I would.
The point is these are human beings with families too,
right?
Amongst all this. Craig says, is Drink back or is this run's momentum magnified because of the premature hand on the panic button? Now, look, guys, I always say, our goal is to bring you guys up when you're really down and bring you down a little bit when you're too high. But I don't want to be the constant wet blanket here. But this class still has 10 commitments and is ranked 60th in the country. That's after adding 2 4-stars. I mean, this run, it all happened in a short period of time. But this class, let's not say this is back to where his last 2 or 3 recruiting classes have been, because if you don't get Ryan Wingo or Williams Nwaneri, I'm still not sure this is a top 40 recruiting class. This is still 15th or 16th in the SEC. They still have fewer commitments than I think. And I don't know, how many does Vandy have right now?
Vandy's got 19.
Okay, yeah. So they still have the fewest commitments of any team in the SEC. Now, this was a good run. But it had to happen, and you don't judge a class. Yes, people judging the class in June were panicking, but people just saying we've gotten 7 commitments in the last 5 days, it's all fixed. That's also premature. Let's get to December and see where this thing is.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, we talked about guys they could possibly get. We're not talking about Wingo and Nwaneri. They'll make a decision down the road. It's not going to be anytime soon, I don't think. But we mentioned Director Patrick, Cole McConaughey. Another kid we didn't talk about that was actually supposed to be in for an official visit for the Go Rush Weekend was Kavion Broussard, the offensive lineman out of Louisiana. I kind of touched base with him. He's a man of few words, but he likes to text, but he doesn't text a whole lot. But he did say, everything's still going good with Missouri. He said he's planning to get back, but he wasn't set on a date, whether he comes back in late July or anything like that. So he's a possibility they could add if they want another offensive lineman. But that's still just 3 dudes I can think of that they're could possibly add, and that would give them 13 commitments. And your class isn't going to, it's going to go up a little bit, but it's still not going to be in the 40s.
Right.
So.
And it's not just adding people. They're going to sign 18, 20, 22 kids. I mean, they
right.
will. But I did the numbers again this morning. Missouri currently has 2 4 or 5 stars signed in this class. Kentucky has 2. Vandy has none. Other than that, everybody has at least 5 in this class. And you have to get some of those higher level kids. And I know people like to say the portal has made high school recruiting irrelevant. That's not true. You can fix some things, but high school recruiting isn't just completely meaningless, so I don't see this class numbers wise on signing day, ranking wise, being what his last 2 or 3 classes have been.
Yeah, not at the projection it's going right now, because unless they hit on some kids during the fall that are uncommitted or they flip some guys, it's also not going to be number 60. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think it'd be 50s though.
Yeah.
I mean, they might surprise us, but
honestly, you can't afford 50s. I mean,
right.
the down years have to be 36, 37.
Right.
Because Missouri was 33 last year, and that was about where Gary Pinkel usually lived. You do that for a year in this league. You do it for 2, you're pushing dangerous, even with the portal.
Mhm.
because I mean, they were 33rd in the country last year and 13th in the SEC. Like, that's what this
Yeah.
league is, guys.
Right.
And that's just the truth. Dave wants to know if there's any chance for Tion Gray to recommit. I was asked this in my mailbag this morning. Sean, I haven't even heard the kid's name since he flipped to Oregon. So maybe, but do you know anything?
I haven't really been paying much attention to him, honestly. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, I wouldn't rule it out. But the thing, the thing is, he's already been committed once. You definitely probably want to make sure he's actually going to sign whenever he recommits. So, but I wouldn't rule it out. St. Louis kid, and he committed to Missouri initially, but does things change with Oregon down the road? I don't know. We'll see. But that's definitely something that Missouri could probably take advantage of if it does happen. But we'll see what happens.
Jimmy wants to know if this season finally puts to rest the fantasy of locking down the borders. I mean, it is a fantasy, but also you can't just pretend it doesn't matter. I mean, if some of these, like if Ryan Wingo and Williams Nwaneri are not from Missouri, Missouri's probably not getting a visit from them. Like that's just, I mean, you don't take a kid because he's from in the state, but still these elite level top 250 guys, and Drinkwitz has done a better job out of state than any Missouri coach previously has getting that level of kid. But for the most part, you've got to have some sort of natural connection to a kid at that level to get him to come to Missouri. So you also, while it's a fantasy that you're going to get all of them, you still can't just say, well, we're not recruiting the state because we're not getting them this year.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you talk about guys like Wingo and Dewarney. I mean, yeah, they have kind of a tie to Missouri because they're close to Missouri, So that's a big thing for those guys. So, and look, with wide receivers and highly ranked kids that are from the in-state. I mean, Luther Burton's kind of making a big splash and just kind of showing people what NIL can do. For somebody at Missouri that's a highly ranked kid, when you go there and you see Luther Burton mentioned all the time and, you see him pop up on social media with these kids. I mean, he's a big influence for these kids that are, coming up the ranks here in high school.
And now they need Luther to the next 2 years for that to happen on the field and him to be a first-round draft pick. Like that's the old selling point.
Yeah,
right?
if that happens and that, that matriculates into a first-round pick, I mean, that's a huge selling point for Missouri.
And if it doesn't happen, I'm not saying it's fair, but if it doesn't happen, what will then be said by the schools recruiting against Missouri is, yeah, sure, you can go there and make a few $100,000, but like they didn't develop you. I mean, that will be used if it doesn't happen. And again, I'm not saying it's fair or right. Drinkwitz is better win at least 8 games when you consider what is going on in Lawrence, Kansas. I just want to stop there. Are we referencing this class that is for KU, currently number 38 in the country with a lower average star ranking than Missouri with exactly 3 4-stars as opposed to 2? Is that what's going on in Lawrence, Kansas I don't know what's going on in Lawrence, Kansas that Missouri fans should be so concerned about?
I think he means just wins on the field and going to bowl games. And
they went to one? I'm pretty sure they lost it. Maybe they won it. I don't remember. But
so they're on equal footing, maybe.
Look. I think Lance Leipold's a hell of a coach, but
I think so
he got some digging to do before they're on equal footing with a lot of people.
Right, but yeah, off to a good start. We'll see how he does in the sophomore season at Kansas.
Look, and like nothing that Missouri football does should be because of what's going on in Lawrence, Kansas. It should be Fayetteville, Arkansas, Lexington, Kentucky, Columbia, South Carolina. Those are the first 3 places you start. Seems Drink may have caught lightning in a bottle with making these guys a batch of recruits when you don't have the brand of some other SEC schools. Group persuasion is good. I mean, look, I don't believe in pipelines, really. I tend to think this is kind of a one-off, having 3 kids all from the same program. But, hey, if you're going to get 3 kids from one team, that ain't a bad program to get them from.
Might as well get them from one of the best programs in the state of Florida. So they definitely did that. And look, I'll throw in Cameron Keys too. That's 4 Florida kids. So will it mean anything in the future? We'll see. But I mean, that's a really good start to kind of put a foothold in Florida and have a little bit more success there than you had in previous years.
Yeah, are they pushing harder for kids because in this state because of NIL laws? I mean, it's definitely a point that's being made to these kids. Absolutely, without question. I mean, Williams Nwaneri tweeted a picture from the state capitol on his official visit. So yes, it's being a thing. Let's see. Thanks for the update. Can we look ahead to the season real quick? I mean, guys, we're going to do that. Like, Missouri goes to SEC Media Days in 12 days. Gerard Hamilton and I are starting weekly podcasts either right before or right after that. We are going to talk about this season to death every single week. This is mostly focused on recruiting. Yes, they need to win. They would need to win football games, but beyond that, we're not going to get into breaking down positions on this and stuff like that. We will certainly do that.
I don't want to.
Fall camp. Yeah.
I'll let Gerard do that.
Exactly. That's Gerard's job. Seems we've been having more success the last few years with blue chip skill players rather than linemen. Any thoughts on why? I mean, like John, I answered a question in the mailbag. Like, it is fair to look at the offensive line recruitment and say that's the position it seems like they've struggled. Now, I don't buy into, well, he has a pitch that works with receivers and not offensive line. That doesn't make any sense, right? It's different with every individual kid. The one thing I would point out is that 2 years ago, they signed 5 offensive linemen. They feel pretty good about some young kids like Val Erickson, Armand Mimbo played last year, Tristan Wilson. Like, they think they have some guys coming up. But no question, like, that's a place where the recruiting needs to pick up. It's also a place that it's really hard to get 4- and 5-star offensive linemen because absolutely everybody wants them.
Oh, yeah. Offensive linemen, defensive linemen, those are highly ranked. I mean, you get highly ranked guys at those positions. A lot of teams really want those guys. I mean, you just look at the transfer portal. Any lineman with experience that pops in the portal, I mean, the blue bloods are all over them. So, yeah, I mean, that's a premium position. And, yeah, they've struggled a little bit. They brought in 2 guys for official visits over June, and they didn't get either one of those guys. Zion Brown went to Stanford. William Eccles went to Ole Miss. So we'll kind of see how offensive lineman kind of shapes up going forward, obviously with the new offensive line coach, Brandon Jones there.
Yeah. Jason Franken said, if Drink doesn't sign Wingo, does this mean he has lost his Missouri connections? Thoughts, Sean? Because my thought is just no.
Yeah, my thought would be no. I mean, he's done the best. Look, you get him on campus for an official visit. He's been on campus quite a few times. He's done the best he can do. Whether he ends up in Missouri doesn't mean Drake was just going to lose his connections. But
like, it means Ryan Wingo has offers from legitimately everybody. Like, there are very few schools that Ryan Wingo could call and say, I want to commit today, that would say no.
Right.
Like, maybe 4 in the whole country. So that's all that means. The higher ranked kids are harder to get. Zach says, and this is our last comment, at least for now, I think where the recruiting classes ends up is decided by week 6 of the season. So bigger point here. And like every year, especially years where Missouri maybe has missed out on some in-state kids or some highly ranked kids, people convince themselves in July, well, all we got to do is win games and these kids are all going to come back. And truthfully, not really. Now, look, Missouri goes out and goes 11-1 this year. Yes, I believe there are some kids that would go, oh, hang on. 10-2, I think would do that. 8-4, I don't think I don't think there's very many kids that are going to look and go, well, I wasn't going to go there, but I mean, 8-4 and they beat Kansas State and Kentucky. Absolutely. I just don't think that exists. I think 4-8 would have an effect because I think 4-8 could mean a coaching change. I think 10-2 would have an effect. But in between there, like we were talking earlier about how early kids are committing, the fact of the matter is most kids that are going to be committed somewhere by August 1st. Most kids with a lot of options, right? And those options maybe aren't Georgia, Alabama.
Right.
So a lot of those kids are going to be committed before, and I just don't think 7-5 or 8-4 is going to, because I don't think those kids made their choice based on, well, I'm not going if they're 6-6, but I'll go if they're 8-4. I don't think I think that's something people tell themselves to extend hope a few more months, but I just don't see this season barring an out of nowhere 10-2 season suddenly taking this from a class that we're talking about being in the low 30s or the 40s to like a top 20 class. I just don't think that's reality.
It's like the situation earlier when somebody mentioned Tion Gray when he come back into class. It's like I don't see a scenario like that playing out. That would actually change Tion Gray's mind to come back to Missouri, over Oregon. I don't know where Oregon's going to finish, but they had a good year last year. I mean, I don't know where they'll go this year. They got Bo Nix back, so. But yeah, I don't think Missouri finishing like with 8 wins is really going to sway whether he wants to get flip back to Missouri in the end. So
like maybe 8 wins, and then if Drinkwitz can go out and say, "Oh, by the way, guys, somebody just donated $8 million to our NIL collective, so let's talk again." Like that's reality, right? If the reason everybody wants to jump on for losing kids is NIL, well, you want to get a lot of these kids back, find some money and go pay them more.
Yeah,
like I mean that's just.
Here's your care package upon signing.
Yeah, no doubt, man. So I don't know, that's kind of where we're at. I budgeted about an hour for this because I thought it's been a while. So I thought it might kind of take that long to catch up on everything that's happened. And again, there are 4 commitments scheduled here in the next 7 days that we know about. As of right now, like the over-under on those next 4, I think, is 1.5. Because I think we feel good they're going to get Brian Huff. We don't think they're going to get Darian Dupree.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get one of those other 2, you've hit the over, but I don't think we have a feel for it right now.
Yeah, I'd say, between Cardenas and McConaughey, I think they got a better shot with McConaughey, to be honest with you. But, Cardenas could go either way. But, he's just kind of being tight-lipped, and McConaughey is too. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, so it's certainly been a busy week. But look, I mean, they've got 10 commitments. They're going to get probably 10 more. We're going to continue to cover this stuff. There are going to be visits during the season. All that is a little bit slower. I think, Sean, I don't know what the calendar is, but I feel like July is kind of at least a quiet period, if not a dead period.
July's like a dead period till like the very last week, and then I think they can, because some teams will host like camps, and then other teams.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Missouri might have some kids on campus. I don't know if they'll be for official visits, but I remember they did that last year. They had some kids come in for just visits, and I don't think they were official, but they might have had a camp too. So but the last week of July is going to be kind of like a reopening of things. So might get a little bit of action in, but maybe not much.
Yeah, well, I would go 5-star performance on the questions, 5-star performance for Sean Williams. I don't really care what my rating is. I'm beyond that. Rivals ranked me highly. Everybody else, I think, had me a little further down.
But you're just a 4-star on Twitter, man. So,
hey, I can't even read half of Twitter. I'm going to be a no-star here pretty soon.
Just like everybody else. Everybody's a 4-star on Twitter.
There you go. But guys, appreciate you. Those of you who joined us live, we had a good crowd here throughout. If you catch this on the replay, again, like the channel or like the show, subscribe to the channel, share it on social media. Same thing on the podcast, which I'm going to put together right when we get done. Thanks for joining us. We'll do this with Sean again, semi-regularly once we get into the season. We're going to start in a week or 2 here with Gerard Hamilton with the weekly football shows. So it's been, look, I know that there is no off season, but frankly, we take an off season sometimes. We are back full gear here again. So we will be on, check your local YouTube listings. We'll be hitting you up now and again. So talk to you next time.